Now we'd like to welcome another speaker. We have, the topic is a DPP. And we have Mr. Jens Gayko from the Managing Director, Standardization Council, Industries 4 and 4.0.
Of Standardization Council Institute 4.0, VDEV for the next. Please welcome him with a big hand. 박수로 환영해 주십시오.
So good morning, and thank you very much for the opportunity to present here on the standardization part for the digital product passport. Standardization have been mentioned before in the presentations, and I will touch upon this a little bit closer. First of all, let me explain a little bit what is the Standardization Council Industrie 4.0 and why are we doing all this international cooperation. The SCI 4.0 was established in Germany about 10 years ago. At that time, the topic Industry 4.0 came up in Germany. And we have in Germany a so-called platform, Industry 4.0, where all the societal stakeholders like ministries, like government offices, industry, trade associations, research, and even the unions are in. And they implement the basic strategy for Industry 4.0. But the basic strategy needs to be implemented, otherwise it's useless. And there are two streams for implementation in the pre-competitive area. One is via pilot projects, that's the so-called Labs Network Industry 4.0, LNI, you see on the left side of the slide, and via standardization. And standardization is done at almost all kinds. We have it on the ISO and IEC standards on the international level, but also a lot of consortia standards. And to coordinate all this, the Standardization Council Industry 4.0 was established. And our role is to guide the community how to do the standardization, how to make best use of existing standards, and how to implement the concepts in new standards, and to start the international dialogue. As you see, international dialogue is very important with the key industrial regions worldwide, of course within Europe, but also here with Korea. We have cooperation since many, many years, and I'm very happy to be here again today to present on this, and already next trips to Korea are scheduled within this year. One of the results of our work is published in the so-called Standardization Roadmap Industry 4.0. This has been published 2 years ago, and this year we have published a so-called progress report. If you're interested in that, you can read what is our plan for standardization and what is the current status of implementation. But coming now to the digital product passport and the use case for digital twin. First of all, as it has been already shown, the Ecodesign for Sustainable Product Regulation, or shortly ESPR, has been firstly published to a wider audience 3 years ago, and last year it was published. And in 2027 it should be adopted for the first products. This slide I reused from Pierre Henry. He showed earlier before, and as you see, the ESPR has mainly the two elements. One, it is a framework regulation, and on the other hand, you have the product-specific measurements. And within the framework regulation, the so-called DPP system is described. The product-specific measures, this defines which data points are necessary for the different product categories. This is the DPP data. Also, the next slide is reused or remanufactured. I added the red box to the different elements because my focus here today is on the digital product passport, which is a new tool which has been introduced within the ESPR. But it's not only the ESPR. It is already announced by the European Commission that it will be adopted to further regulations, like we have the battery regulation, toys regulation, and even more regulations, as you see on the bottom. So I use these slides from the EU Commission because they are very good prepared, and so it's, I think, the best way to show it. So we, as it was stated earlier, the DPP is here to stay. It's not just for one regulation, it will be a tool with a wider adoption. And it has a lot of opportunities. Coming now to the standardization part. As I said, the DPP has two main features. The one is the so-called DPP system, which describes the overall architecture for how the DPP is working. And the second one is the DPP data. So the system describes the how. And within the how, it is described what are the elements like a registry, like a web portal, but also elements like unique identifiers, for example, QR codes, like data carriers, access rights management, and so on and so on. And these parts will be defined via standardization. And that's a link where I'm talking about the standardization part. On the right side, we see the DPP data, so the what is in the digital product passport, and this will be product specific, and it's a political decision. For example, if for this electronic device I have in my hand, you need a product carbon footprint, yes or no, or if you need the amount of recycled content, yes or no. This is a political decision. As a side remark, if the EU Commission decides we need the product carbon footprint, then I think it would be the best way to use an international standard how to calculate the product carbon footprint, because otherwise we have a regional fragmentation of the global supply chain, and that would cause a big burden on the global economy and in the end also for the consumers. Showing this timeline, it shows how the regulatory work and the standardization work is synchronized. Again, we start in March 2022 when the ESPR proposal was published, and at that time the standardization community sat together and said, oh, there will be something upcoming for us and we have to be prepared. And already in end of 2023, we could establish a European technical committee called JTC 24 on the digital product passport. And we are lucky the chair of this JTC 24, Mr. Thomas Knote, he's also here on this event, and tomorrow he will be in a session on the battery passport. Then last year, the so-called EU standardization request on the DPP was published. So this is a tool we have in Europe where the EU Commission published a standardization request to make concrete description of the technical requirements on EU regulation. And as you see, we could even establish the JTC 24 before the standardization request was published. The duration of the standardization request is that all the standards need to be published by beginning of next year, so which is in about 9 months from now, so quite soon. But already in these days, in the recent days, the first drafts have been published, so there is now the phase for public inquiry on the drafts. So if you're interested on that, there is already the possibility to have now a view in these drafts and to give comments on them. So now you may think, oh, well, the Europeans make a European technical committee to develop standards. And then it will be, of course, European standards. On the one hand, that's right. On the other hand, we can say we are clearly committed to use international standards as much as possible. Therefore, I added this long arrow to say standardization work in existing TCs. So we have already a lot of existing standards on digital twin, on identification links, on QR codes, and so on and so on. And we want to reuse them as much as possible. So we are fully committed to make the DPP as much as possible relying on international standards. And these standards are developed in technical committees at ISO and IEC, and of course Korean experts are highly welcome to join these, or they are already very active on this. And as you can see also, there's just recently an initiative to establish an international joint technical committee on digital product passport between ISO and IEC, because we think then in the next step we need also to discuss this on the international level. So we will, in the first step, see European standards, but technically mainly relying on international standard, and just make reference and to say you need to take this element from that standard, this element from that standard, and with that you can fulfill the European requirements. If you look at the scope of the digital product passport, the scope is from the ESPR regulation, the scope is on the right side of the slide where the green part is. So it starts with the point where you place the product into the market. And then it goes along the use phase and these R strategies like repair, remanufacture, recycle, or even reuse. So this is a point in time where you need the DPP. On the left side, along the supply chain, there is no need for digital product passport according to the regulation. But I will come later to this because here is the complexity. And that's also the challenge for the industry. Now let me talk about digital twin and what is the role of digital twin for DPP. Well, the concept of digital twin, I think it's quite well known here in Korea. It's a digital representation of a physical thing. Here, for example, an electric motor. So you have a full digital representation. This could have a functional description like simulation model, prediction of condition monitoring, prediction of wear, of maintenance, and so on, but also more or less static object information like technical specification, documentation, or some, let's say, quasi-static information like life cycle information, usage hours, or whatever. And this part can be used also for the digital product passport, at least some of that, not all of that. So we say if you have a digital twin for your product, it's a quite good preparation to provide also DPP data to fulfill regulation. One important element of the digital twin compared to the known formats or reportings we have today is the so-called machine-readable dictionaries or semantics. So in normal forms, as you have them, for example, if you want to travel from Korea to US, you have to fill out immigration form or something like that. And there you have a human readable format where it says you have to enter your name, your first name, your state, your country, whatever. And then maybe with state and country, you think about, okay, in the one I write Korea, and the other, what is the other one? So maybe you start to think, what should I fill in there? Because the semantic is not fully clear and not fully described, and you cannot translate one by one from America to other countries in the world. So this is a problem we face with today's reportings, and we want to solve this. And we want to solve this by so-called machine-readable dictionaries. They have a clearly defined semantics, clear description, and this is for humans readable, but also for machines. For machines, we have a machine-readable code. It is shown here. It's a very cryptic code. For humans, we do not need to remember this one, but the machines can directly say, oh, this is the string, this is the machine-readable identification. It's the same, so I can copy the data from one database to another one. And that is the key element to automatically provide the data for the digital product passport. So therefore, the machine-readable semantic is a key for automatic generation of digital product passport. And here, we are lucky, we have an international dictionary already, the IAC Common Data Dictionary, IAC CDD, and this is internationally standardized, machine-readable semantic dictionary. And by the way, ISO is also preparing to publish content for this one. So we have a tool in international standardization for a machine-readable dictionary, and we strongly suggest to use this as a basis to describe DPP data. Second one is, as I said, the DPP can be implemented by a digital twin. Well, in the German community for Industry 4.0, we developed a concept for digital twin, and it is called Asset Administration Shell. This one is standardized at an IAC standard, and this Asset Administration Shell is a very modular concept of a digital twin with a high focus on data sovereignty for the companies. And in the presentation before from Dr. Shin, he mentioned also sovereignty as a very important topic. And with this concept of the asset administration shell, we try to consider this as much as possible. Because in Europe and Germany, we have basically the same situation as in Korea. We have no hyperscalers. The hyperscalers are all located in the US or in China. Maybe the hyperscalers are so big they can establish their own proprietary system and their own semantics. But then you lose data sovereignty. So one big focus was on data sovereignty, and I think this concept fulfills this very well. It is basically a data container with different modules. These modules are shown here in green and red boxes. And the green boxes are available to the public, and the red one have restricted access. And so you can use this for the digital product passport, so some information is available to the public, like end user and customer, and some information is not available to the public that could be, for example, for market surveillance authorities or for customs. But also you can have further information which goes beyond the compliance, beyond the legal requirements. So you can have additional digital services by using the DPP. So this turns, as Dr. Shin mentioned out, we turn regulatory requirements into an opportunity. So we can use the tool of the digital product passport to offer additional digital services within one system. That is the approach of this one. So it is a possibility, and I can say that we have since many years a close cooperation with Korea, and the concept of asset administration shell is known also in Korea, at least to some companies. I see here JJ Lee sitting there, and I think he's very familiar with the concept about this, and they have some first experience on that. I showed this slide before, almost the same. I said the regulatory requirement of the digital product passport starts on the right side where you place the product in the market. But the complexity is on the left side along the supply chain. Because along the supply chain, you need to collect all the data from your suppliers, from tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and so on and so on. And so you need to exchange the data among different companies, even among the different sectors. So for example, from steel to electronics to whatever. And well, there are two possibilities. The one is you use email and send PDF and Excel and make it by hand, which is probably very cost intensive. You need a lot of human resources to interpret the data and to fill out. You have a lot of errors and it does not scale. The other is you use a digital twin and you use a data space approach. And I saw already you are considering the data space approach for your Korean strategy, and I think this is quite good. So both we can say a digital twin is not required for the DPP, but it's strongly recommended. The same holds for data space. It's not requested by the European Commission. For the EU Commission, it's fine if you send emails with PDF and Excel, as long as you provide the DPP when you place a product in the market. But from an economic point of view, we recommend to have a strategy to implement a data space. Otherwise, it will be a big, big effort to exchange the data along the supply chain. And so with the shown concept, we can combine both. We can fulfill the regulatory requirements, but also use the opportunities of the data economy. That brings me to the summary. So we can say the EU DPP is a political concept. It's introduced by the ESPR, and it will be extended to fulfill further regulatory requirements, and also it will be extended to further regulations. There are already approaches to have the declaration of conformity within the DPP as a tool. I think for toys regulation, it is already, the declaration of conformity is in the DPP. So if you look that, it will be extended with further elements. So that is a political concept, and it's a regulation. We say the DPP should be standardized internationally, and that's what we are fully committed to say. We need international standards to implement the DPP and to meet the requirements of global supply chains. We publish now, or we are working now on European standards, but as I said, we rely, these standards are based as much as possible on international standards. I showed the concept from Industry 4.0 called DPP 4.0. So it's a combination of Industry 4.0 and Digital Product Passport. And this uses the concept of asset administration shell according to IEC 63278 series, which is the concept of a digital twin. But of course, other implementations are possible. It's not a must to use this one. But this is one possible implementation, and we think it has some advantages because you can easily extend it to data space concepts. And as I said, de facto, you need a data space to fulfill the requirements, but not from a legal point of view, but just from an economic point of view. And by using the Industry 4.0 concept, the DPP could be a good use case to start the digital transformation of your company and to start also data economy within your supply chain and with your business partners. And with that, I come to an end, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your remarkable presentation. Thank you. 고맙습니다. 이렇게 다양한 정보를 함께 나눠주셨습니다. 이엔스
Thank you so much for sharing your insights and expertise.